Why is it, do you think, that it's not more prevalent in our society and media and just people in general to talk about how diet can be related to these cancers? It's kind of hushed. It's just not mentioned at all.
It's hard not to get a little cynical, and I don't want to fall off into conspiracy land here, but we can be honest. There's a lot of interest making a lot of money to keep Americans eating like they are and to keep those burgers going down people's throats and to sell them all the fatty meats and salamis and fast foods. Money is driving so much of this, and government subsidies make these foods artificially cheap. So if you're a single mom with 4 kids to feed, it's cheaper to go to McDonald's than it is to stock up with produce. And so there's many market forces that are conspiring against healthy eating. If it was just pure science, it should be on billboards. It should be on TV commercials twice an hour. Stop eating the meat and the dairy and the oils and sugars and processed foods. Eat more fruits, vegetables, make some stews and soups and salads, and eat whole plant foods. That should be on the TV commercials, and everything would change. But a lot of people making a lot of money from the status quo that's just not serving us, and we're all paying the consequences for that.
That was Dr. Michael Klaper, one of my favorite plant-based physicians and medical minds, now on the podcast for a second time. An internationally recognized teacher, speaker, and gifted medical practitioner, he's been helping patients reverse chronic illness with plant-based nutrition and integrative medicine for the last 40 years, helping thousands of people reclaim their health and youthful vitality. Dr. Klaper served as director of the nonprofit Institute of Nutrition Education and Research and was a member of the Nutrition Task Force of the American Medical Student Association. He now works full-time with Moving Medicine Forward, where he lectures at medical schools across the nation, educating students on plant-based nutrition and lifestyle changes to restore their patients' health and truly heal. We know that healthy dietary patterns are a key component to preventing and even reversing many of the most common diseases that are prevalent here in the US. Yet nutrition education is still rarely taught in medical school curriculums. So the pill for every ill continues on. That's why Dr. Klaper's work with Moving Medicine Forward is so integral in changing the game of our current medical system. In this episode, we hone in on optimal nutrition for preventing America's biggest killers, heart disease, and many types of diet-related cancers. We also discuss how to build a nutritious plate and what specific foods help protect you against these cancers. What an incredible episode. I hope you love it as much as I do. Welcome to the Ellen Fisher Podcast. So I just got a new Safe Sleeve for my phone, which is a 5G EMF radiation protection case, and I'm super stoked about it. Safe Sleeve offers anti-radiation products designed to give you the peace of mind of knowing you and your devices are protected while making them even easier to use. All of their anti-radiation products incorporate lab-tested shielding technology that can block over 99% of RF and 92% of ELF radiation. There are very few anti-radiation brands that offer lab-tested protection. Theirs is publicly available on their website, and maybe 1 to 2 others that block ELF. ELF is much harder to block, but equally as important. And all of their cell phone cases provide military-grade drop protection, which is also tested by a third-party evaluator. Not only that, these cases come in different colors to suit your favorite style, and there's even a place for your bank cards and cash, so everything is in one easy-to-use place. I got the detachable case for my iPhone, which turns into a stand and includes the ability to magnetically remove the protective inner case for car mounting. And SafeSleeve also has cases for your tablet and laptop too. And I got a discount code for you guys, so you too can protect yourself from EMF radiation with SafeSleeve. Click my link below and enter the code Ellen10 to get 10% off your SafeSleeve purchase. All right, thank you, Dr. Klaper, so much for being here again. How has your trip been?
Oh, it's been wonderful. The people are wonderful, and Maui is always fabulous. It's been great to be here.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you're here. And I thought we could start out the conversation where you could update people a little bit on the Moving Medicine Forward initiative, what you're doing full-time, and why.
Indeed. Thank you. Well, Moving Medicine Forward is our attempt to fill in this grotesque vacuum, this hole in modern medical education where doctors are churned out with their medical degree without ever considering the effect of the patient's daily diet on the diseases they're spending their careers treating. And it's turning out that indeed what our patients are eating is the major cause why their arteries clog, why they become obese, why they become inflamed. And the good news, if you get these folks on a truly healthy, whole food, plant-based diet, most of these diseases go away. These are reversible diseases. I wish someone had told me that when I was in medical school. You must take blood pressure pills the rest of your life. There's lifetime medication. No one gets off insulin. That's what I was told, but the truth is the exact opposite. These are reversible diseases. We get people off their blood pressure pills and insulin all the time as they get leaner and healthier on a plant-based diet. And I was thinking somebody ought to reach those first, second, third-year medical students with this message before pharmacosclerosis sets into their brain and they think that drugs and surgery are the only treatment. And I'm thinking someone ought to tell these students. And the little voice says, "How about you, Doc?" And that was 3 years ago. And since then, we've achieved our 501c3 nonprofit status. And I've been going around to the nation's medical schools, giving the students the lecture I wish someone had given me 50 years ago, and telling them it's what your patients are running through their bloodstream every 4 hours with their food is why they're sitting in front of you, doctor, overweight, hypertensive, diabetic, clogged up and inflamed. Send these people to the plant-based dietitian. Let her get them on a plant-based diet and a walk every day. You see them back in a month and see if they're not healthier and see if you can start reducing some of their medications. That's how medicine should be practiced in the 21st century. If someone had told me that, it would have changed the course of my whole medical career. So we were trying to get that message into the minds and hearts of, again, the first, second, third, fourth year medical students. But we lectured to the residents and the fellows, and I was just both the gastroenterology fellows at the University of Texas last month. Very receptive. They're all very receptive. They know something's up with nutrition, but they haven't had an experienced physician stand in front of them saying, "It's what your patients are eating, doctor. Start there before you order another $1,000 scan, another $500 lab test. Ask them what they ate yesterday. And if it's full of burgers and buffalo wings, that's the problem. Let's help these patients get on a truly healthy diet." And moving medicine forward gives the guidance and the resources to help people achieve really healthy diet, work with a food coach, whatever they need. So I'm trying to fill in that crucial missing link, because my noble profession has been a major bottleneck in preventing this huge transition to plant-based diets that we all need to make. And if the doctors were really behind this and doing it themselves, and at every visit, "Hi, Joe, how's your plant-based diet going? I've lost 20 pounds. How are you doing with it?" If everybody heard a really positive message from their doctor, it would change everything. So I'm trying to work at that acupuncture point. We can get the medical profession on board, and that would certainly open the gates to some major changes here. So that's what Moving Medicine Forward is directed to, and we are slowly but surely succeeding. And if anyone would like to learn about our work or how to support us, I'm sure you'll have the contact information down. We accept all sorts of donations from all sorts of modalities, Zelle and Venmo and all that. And so it would be great if you get that word out. But trying to make things better when it comes to why doesn't my doctor know anything about nutrition? We're trying to answer that question in the best possible way.
Amazing. And I'm so glad to hear that people are being receptive to it. And do you think that we will be able to get nutrition into the medical schooling at some point? Why is it that it's not in there yet?
Oh, absolutely. And again, it's been part of this huge blind spot that medical education has incorporated. They don't want to talk about food because it gets into sensitive areas. I mean, I can't eat 5 cheeseburgers a week, and you're going to tell me I can't have buffalo wings and hot dogs every day? That's the nanny state. Tell them no one's going to tell me what I can eat or drink. But your arteries don't care about how you feel. Your intestinal flora doesn't care about how you feel. They just want a whole food, plant-based diet coming down to function optimally. And so it's generally been ignored both in the curriculum planning in med schools as well as the testing. And I was at the University of Washington, Seattle. A couple of years ago, I gave a talk. And a surgeon approached me later, said, "Doc, very nice lecture, very important. But until they start asking these questions on the national board exams, no, we're not going to be teaching this stuff. It's enough to get all the rest of the stuff into the curriculum." And I realized there was a ring of truth to that. So what do? Well, we went to the National Board of Medical Examiners and said, "What will it take for you guys to start putting questions about nutrition, applied nutrition, on the diet, on the exam?" He says, "Well, we don't know anything about the subject." Well, that's no excuse. Yeah, it's important. They said, "Well, if you make up the questions, we'll put them on." So So the American College of Lifestyle Medicine got a panel together and put together 1,000 questions on plant-based nutrition and submitted them to the board. And hopefully we will start seeing them showing up on the national board exams, which will be a major step. But also the medical residents, the students, they're asking for it, for this information to be available. In every med school class now, there's 20 or 30 students. They've seen films like Forks Over Knives. They've seen What the Health. They've seen Cowspiracy. The light's on. They know something's up with nutrition. They need an experienced clinician to tell them this is not California woo-woo stuff. This is the bedrock physiology of the disease you're going to be treating. And once that message gets out, there's very little resistance. Every once in a while, there'll be a professor in the back of the room with his arms folded and giving unwelcome reception to some of what I'm saying, because it threatens the model. It threatens the intellectual model that food doesn't make any difference. Well, it threatens that model. But of course, it threatens our economic model, as far as if everybody adopts this, there'll be less chest open and stents placed and a lot of the Band-Aid medicine. And plus, it also threatens cultural issues. That I grew up eating this food. My mother always made pancakes and sausage every Sunday morning. And you're not going to take that away from me. So there's obstacles, but again, the truth is the truth. Gorillas out in the wild are eating leaves and fruits all day, a high carbohydrate diet. They don't develop type 2 diabetes. Because they're eating their native natural diet of high fiber, whole plant foods. Well, we have basically the same digestive system that our bonobo and gorilla cousins have. And we thrive on a diet of whole plant foods. And we have the enzymes in our digestive system to take apart starches and plant proteins and assimilate fats, etc. But when you start throwing down meat and dairy and oils and sugars and all the processed food chemicals, whoa, that's, it's like putting diesel fuel in a gasoline burning engine, and the spark plugs foul and the gas line clogs up. And, disease, unknown origin. I've got a T-shirt that says it's the food. It's been the food all along, and that's really the issue. And especially the younger students and residents, once they hear this, there's no real arguing with it. It becomes, of course, why didn't I see this before? So I'm just helping them make that very important intellectual step to at least open to the possibility that food makes a difference, because truth is, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense, because I think a lot of physicians and even medical students are seeing that the prescription drug model of just a pill for every ill is not actually solving the problem, and physicians go into to the medical field to help people. And so getting that connection to see, nutrition, such an important role in helping with the prevention and even reversal of chronic diseases.
Absolutely. In fact, on my website, drklaper.com, people can click on the lecture, What I Wish I Learned in Medical School About Nutrition. They can see what I'm telling the medical students there. And we make it very clear that when you eat a cheeseburger, I show them what happens in their bloodstream and all the different changes that happen from the salt and the sugar and the oils, etc. And it suddenly starts making a whole lot of sense to them, and very little resistance when you're still in the science.
Yes, that's awesome. So for those who are listening and are really interested in eating plant-based, or maybe they've even tried eating that way before and they struggle to be successful at it and to feel their best and to make it long term, what advice do you have for someone wanting to go towards a more whole foods plant-based diet? Because last time we had our conversation, we did dabble in it, but let's get into it a little bit more specifically for people who would like some more details to make it successful.
Sure. Very important question. And we want people to always feel comfortable. It's just food, and it's a matter of staying in your comfort zone. And so let's take a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner, and we can start just one day a week, one meal a week, one breakfast a week. Let's see if we can make it totally plant-based. Well, that's a little easy in breakfast. Just have some oatmeal with your favorite fruits in there, a little bit of chopped nuts and some flax seeds, and some plant milk, oat milk, hemp milk, one of those. So that certainly works for breakfast. And so lunches and dinners, what are you going to have? Well, for lunches, a classic soup and a sandwich and maybe a little salad there. That would certainly work. Well, there's lots of wonderful hearty vegetable soups that you can make and put some veggies and pastas and grains and beans and lentils in there and season it however you'd like. And you can have that both for lunch and dinner. But there's our lunch soup. And a sandwich. It doesn't have to be ham and cheese. It can be a hummus sandwich, tomato and lettuce. It can be a nut butter sandwich. Lots of things to put on grilled vegetables. Lots of things to put on a sandwich besides meat. And if you do want to do a rare treat or once a week treat during transition of one of these new veggie burgers, whatever, fine, once a week, have one of those. Whatever it takes to get you through lunch and say, that was a really satisfying lunch. And look, no meat or dairy involved. Yay. Now we're 2/3 of the way through. You've cut your meat consumption down by 2/3 just with these 2 meals here. And dinner, again, soup, salad, steamed veggies. You want a healthy starch in there, whether it's potatoes or a grain, quinoa, millet, buckwheat, or barley, rice, whatever. And you really want to emphasize legumes in some form. Those are those high protein foods that grow in a pod, beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils. Find a way to get some legumes into at least one meal a day. And whether that's a bean chili or lentil stew or a hummus sandwich or a bunch of alfalfa sprouts thrown on your salad, get some legumes in there as often as you can. And eat all you want. And get some. Always have fresh vegetables. At least one salad a day, without question. Like Dr. Furman says, the salad is the main dish, and you need that fresh live produce in there. So have a big salad every day. You can make a nice meal out of just a big salad. Open up a can of beans or lentils and put them on top there with your favorite dressing. Man, that's a meal. So it's easier than you think. And finally, the ethnic cultural issues here. Find the one that you like the most and find a way to make it plant-based. If the person loves East Indian food, well, you can make some wonderful vegetable curries without putting the chicken in there. You can use chickpeas or other legumes. Our friends from south of the border, you can make great bean chilies instead of beef chilies. Make these wonderful minestrone soups. There's certainly ways to honor and enjoy the ethnic flavors that are available and still stay whole food plant-based. So it's really not that hard. Just look at what you already eat and find a way to replace the foods that aren't so healthy for you. And all of a sudden, gee, I'm doing it, man. Maybe 5 days, I haven't had any meat or dairy. Look at that. Mm-hmm. And I ate a lot of great food.
Right. A couple of important factors to add on top of that I think is really helpful is eating enough calories. Because a lot of people, they go, okay, I'm going to take out the meat, take out the cheese, but then they don't replace it with the thing that you were mentioning. They don't replace it with the hummus and replace it with the healthy plant proteins and healthy fats like avocado. And then as a result, their meals are not fulfilling enough and they're not getting enough calories, because something I think a lot of people forget is that whole plant foods are filled with water and fiber that animal foods are not. So you get to eat more bites of food to become satisfied. I like to say get to, because it really is. With the ultra processed food and animal foods model, there's a lot of restriction involved to maintain a healthy weight. But with a plant-based diet, it's not that like that at all.
Indeed. Thank you. That was a very astute point, and you were absolutely right. Thank you for correcting me or adding to my point.
I don't think it was a correction.
Yeah, right. But adding to the point that yes, absolutely, you need the sufficient amount of protein. And soy protein can turn into tofu or tempeh or edamame beans. Those are wonderful ways to get your instead of to get high protein features into a meal. Instead of meatballs, my wife makes lovely tofu balls and mix them with some tempeh as well and puts them in the spaghetti sauce. So, but absolutely, you need those dense foods for satisfaction and to keep your weight on. Absolutely, that's a valid point.
And then the other thing you mentioned about the veggie burger being once a week, if that helps you transition thing, that's also a really helpful point, because some people might think, it's vegan, let me just continue to, it's vegan, whatever. And then over time they think, I'm not feeling that great, because you're eating a lot of processed, ultra processed foods in the meantime. You can eat a vegan diet that is filled with Cheetos and Oreos. That's definitely not going to be healthy, versus a whole foods plant-based diet. And I think when you say veggie burger for people who are listening, that means like the packaged ones with all the added ingredients, the ultra processed foods that we know, versus a homemade veggie patty, which could be made of lentils and different kinds of sprouts and different kinds of beans and stuff, and carrots, shredded carrots and celery,
Yes.
spices. That would be a whole foods veggie patty that you could have all throughout the week. So that's really helpful, I think, for people to see, because it's very easy for people to get in a habit of convenience foods when that's not really the way we were designed to thrive.
Excellent point.
So, Anima Mundi Herbals. You guys, if you haven't tried anything from their apothecary shop yet, what are you doing? I'm serious. They are an incredible shop with protein powders, herbal remedies, and beauty kits that are the perfect addition to your healthy daily habits. I am currently obsessed with their collagen beauty kit, and I'm going to need to gift this kit to someone I love soon because it really is enhancing my life. It comes with a dirty rose chai collagen, a superfruit collagen, an original collagen booster powder, and a collagen face oil and rose quartz gua sa, all made with plants known for their collagen protecting and boosting effects. Many of the herbs within their formulations are bone strengthening herbs that are naturally high in silica, calcium, phosphorus, and other minerals. This kit is full of plant magic to help support healthy hair, skin, nails, and bones. Anima Mundi Herbals was founded by herbalist Adriana Ayales, and her apothecary uses over 200 different sustainably grown herbs from around the world to create intentional products that contain zero fillers, binders, or flow agents. Made in the U.S. with certified organic, wild-crafted, and sustainably harvested plants and herbs in a vegan and gluten-free kitchen. They also use eco-friendly packaging in recyclable glass or biodegradable bags. So I got a discount code for you guys. Just enter the code ELLEN20 for 20% off. Click the link in my show notes below.
And I really appreciated your point that this is guilt-free eating. I mean, eat till you're full. You know, don't worry about calorie counting and portion control. I mean, how many apples can you, how much kale can you eat? You know, your belly's going to get full of these lovely high fiber, high water content foods. And so now once you start adding processed foods and nut butters and oils, and that changes things. But as long as you stay with whole foods, they're growing in the garden, eat all you want until you're satisfied.
Yeah, and in fact, make sure you eat until you're totally satisfied. And it also depends on maybe your life situation and what stage of life you're at. Because if you're maybe a breastfeeding mom, or like my husband who's bodybuilding, we eat even more than maybe the average person. So encouraging the eating, like I'm eating as much avocado as I want. I'm eating as much, beans and potatoes as I want. All different coconut milk, even all different healthy, high calorie plant foods that keep me totally full, because if you're not getting enough calories, you're not going to feel good, and it's not going to help you long term.
You are correct.
So that's really helpful.
Agreed.
Cool. So let's get into the main topic of today about preventing our America's biggest killers, heart disease, and even certain types of cancers. Let's start with cancer.
Okay.
Which types of cancers are ones that are diet related, and what are your thoughts on what types of dietary patterns help prevent these big killers?
Oh my, very important, big, and complex question here. Cancer has many, many facets, as our colleagues in oncology tell us. And absolutely, there is a genetic component, no doubt. We're talking about uncontrolled growth of particular cells in the body. And when you think of the billions of cells that are dividing in our systems right now, did you know our bone marrow is making new red blood cells? It puts every second, it puts in 2 million red blood cells into the circulation every second. That's how fast our bone marrow is pumping out cells. And so all the cell division is happening. It's amazing. We're all not sprouting out leukemias and cancers from these rapidly growing tissues, our gut lining. It's remarkable. We don't see more cancers than we do. Plus, that's combined, we live in a sea of carcinogens that our grandparents never had to deal with. But the water, the air, everything we touch, our foods now have pesticides, herbicides, and all sorts of hydrocarbons from modern life. And those get into our cells and they tweak our genes and can promote the growth of cancers. There is a genetic component, as I mentioned. If a woman if her mother, two sisters, and an aunt all died of breast cancer at age 39, then clearly there's a genetic propensity in her in her lineage there she needs to pay attention to. So people can be susceptible to cancers. People say, gee, I'm vegan, I shouldn't have any disease ever. But again, we are biologically complex creatures. We have lots of cell division happening. Lots of chemicals are impinging upon us that may cause cancerous growth. And so just being vegan is not an ironclad guarantee that you're not going to get cancer. Vegans do get cancers. And people, if you become vegan at age 42, well, what do those 41 years ahead of you, what were you eating, and what changes that set off in your cells that may manifest when you're 52 in a colon cancer or something? But hey, I've been vegan, but it's the vegans people have been raised as vegans since birth. Ooh, they're different creatures. I think they have a much lower incidence, way lower than people who transition later on in life there. So yes, there's a genetic component, and yes, there's lots of carcinogens around. That said, there are clearly things that we do in our diet and our lifestyle that are more likely to make it hospitable for cancer to grow. Certainly, if you were inhaling cigarette smoke 20 times a day, a pack of cigarettes, you are painting your lungs with carcinogens from the burning tobacco leaf. And well, that's obviously going to set you up for cancer of the lung. We know that. Well, it turns out we eat 3 times a day at least, and so there's a steady stream of potential carcinogens going down. Nobody eats raw meat. The very act of grilling the burger or broiling the steak or frying the chicken oxidizes the cholesterol, the muscle fibers in the animal muscle, turns them into these nasty hydrocarbon compounds that are carcinogenic. They rub on the colon wall and give and increase the risk of colon cancer. So local carcinogens in your diet, meat is a big player in that. But then there's hormonal issues. Food is so complex. When we eat food, the body responds. And when people eat meat, full of protein, full of amino acids, the protein goes down into the intestinal tract. It's disassembled pretty quickly because no fiber to prevent the enzymes from getting in there. Dismantles it, the amino acids from the protein, and suddenly this flood of amino acids floods up into the liver after a meat-based meal. Well, the liver suddenly gets all these building blocks, and the liver thinks, building block, let's build something with them. And as a response, the liver puts out a surge of this hormone, insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1, one of the most powerful growth-promoting hormones in the body. And it says, grow, grow. And if you're a woman with an early breast cancer or a guy with an early prostate cancer, this is like pouring gasoline on a fire. So high-protein diets can stimulate IGF-1 production. And then in all our genes, in all our cells, where our DNA is all coiled up, there is a set of genes on that DNA called mTOR, M-T-O-R. And mTOR genes are in every cell, and they sense the amount of nutrients in the cells. And when one is fasting, the amounts of sugar and protein and fats plummet, and mTOR quiets down. It doesn't promote much cell growth. But when the opposite is true, and in America we're constantly eating, when there's lots of nutrients in the cells, lots of sugars and proteins, amino acids, mTOR is like the factory foreman that says, hey, the boilers are full, the coal bins are full, we got all the spare parts, start the machinery, start growing, and protein synthesis starts, and cell division starts, and mTOR is responsible for all this cellular activity because there's so many nutrients around. Well, you keep mTOR activated week after week, month after month, year after year. This is the recipe for aging prematurely and as well as for cancer growth. And sugars turn on mTOR, fats turn on mTOR, and not the natural fats in, say, an olive or a walnut. But the fats in oils, the fats in meat, the fats in dairy food, cheese, all these fatty foods, they turn on mTOR. So if you're eating the standard Western diet, meat and dairy and oil and sugars, you're stoking the IGF-1 production. You're stoking the mTOR mechanism, and then along comes a carcinogen that trips up a gene on a particular chromosome, and that cell starts dividing and dividing and dividing, and the milieu that's been created by the daily diet supports that cell division, and suddenly, sorry, Mr. Jones, but that pain you've been having turns out to be cancer throughout your abdomen. How did this happen? Well, we've been kind of setting the table for that unwelcome guest, with our daily diet. And finally, to answer your question, that brings us around to another body response, and those are the hormones that our body produces. Some cancers are really driven by high level of hormones. Breast cancers are driven by estrogens that women produce, and female cows produce as well. And estrogens also make the prostate gland unstable. And so folks who eat a high meat diet, especially a high dairy diet, the more dairy, more cheese a boy eats, the higher is the risk of developing prostate cancer when he's an adult man. So these hormone-driven cancers are really susceptible to what we're eating. Dairy is full of growth hormones. It's for baby calves. And as I said, the sugars and the fats contribute to obesity, and the fat tissue on our bodies puts out inflammatory substances and other molecules that promote cancer growth, promote inflammation and cancer growth. So long answer to your story, but the sums that are most susceptible to diet are the hormone-driven ones: breast cancer, prostate cancer, but we'll talk about general treatment of cancers in a minute. But again, those earlier things about creating that body chemistry where mTOR and IGF-1 are raging, that opens the door to all sorts of cancers here. Mm-hmm. And finally, to put a bow on it, there's such a difference. That's inherent in an animal-based processed food diet that I was mentioning. You grill the meat, you create carcinogens. Well, you steam broccoli, and you don't create these carcinogens. You boil rice, you don't create these carcinogens. There's such a difference between an animal-based diet and a plant-based diet. The plant-based diet gives a message of healing to your tissues, of stability, of antioxidant, of lowering oxidative stress. It really changes the body chemistry and makes it harder to promote a cancer growth here. So, yes, food makes a big difference when it comes to cancers.
Yeah, I love that. And I love all that you preface in the beginning, too, about there's obviously more than just diet that when it comes to cancer. It's really a holistic approach to wellness, the sleep that you're getting, the stress, the healthy relationships in your life, your mind, there's so many factors when it comes. But like you said, there's specific ones that are diet related that are so prevalent in America. And I love hearing the way that you explained that. That's super interesting. Why is it, do you think, that it's not more prevalent in our society and media and just people in general to talk about how diet can be related to these cancers? It's kind of hushed. It's just not mentioned at all. It's never you rarely see it at all, that it's considerations of diet. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's that question. There's the $64,000 cow in the room, or whatever mixed metaphors we're using here. And it's hard not to get a little cynical, and I don't want to fall off into conspiracy land here. But we can be honest. There's a lot of interest making a lot of money to keep Americans eating like they are, and to keep those burgers going down people's throats, and to sell them all the fatty meats and salamis and fast foods. Money is driving so much of this, and government subsidies make these foods artificially cheap. So if you're a single mom with 4 kids to feed, it's cheaper to go to McDonald's than it is to stock up with produce. And so there's many market forces if we were that are conspiring against healthy eating. If it was just pure science, it should be on billboards. It should be on TV commercials twice an hour. Stop eating the meat and the dairy and the oils and sugars and processed foods. Eat more fruits, vegetables. Make some stews and soups and salads and eat whole plant foods. That should be on the TV commercials, and everything would change. But a lot of people making a lot of money from the status quo that's just not serving us, and we're paying the consequences for that.
And what a big difference it is for people to really see the difference between a whole foods plant-based diet, all those examples you gave of steaming broccoli, boiling potatoes, boiling rice, eating whole avocados, as opposed to hot dog buns, just the hot dog buns, burger buns, chips, all those things that are ultra processed and coated with all types of isolated ingredients, as opposed to whole foods. I think a lot of people don't want to eat that way. They think, this is easier, more convenient, and maybe a little bit more tasty because your palate is used to it. But when you get used to the taste of whole foods, not only do you feel better, but it starts to taste better to you too.
Absolutely.
And I think it's coincided because you're eating these foods and you feel better, so you gravitate towards it more. And then when you go back and you start eating more processed foods, or you're eating takeout more often, or you just find yourself eating more of those convenience foods, you'll notice a difference because you're so used to eating whole foods, and then your mind and your body's like, get me back to this because I feel so much better eating this way. And it's a holistic approach, really.
Beautiful points. Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
Yeah. And so do you feel like there is very much data and science showing that these are diet-related cancers, but they just don't talk about it maybe in the mainstream, and so they're in the medical journals, but it's just not being talked about very much?
Short answer, yes. That's exactly what's happening. The studies are certainly in the medical journals. It's hard to open up a journal these days without some articles saying plant-based diets are beneficial for, and pick a disease, autoimmune disease, clogged arteries, high blood pressure. Yes, plant-based diets are beneficial, but the science takes a back seat to the dollar bills. And that's the main problem right now.
Yeah, and it's not as sexy. It's not as interesting to be like, broccoli is back. No, they're going to do a Time article that says butter is back. Everyone goes, ooh, I want to see that telling me that I should eat more butter. I love that idea.
You bet. People love to hear good news about bad habits.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
they do.
Exactly. So what about the common topic point of sugar feeding cancer? Let's get into that a little bit.
Well, when you look in the standard cancer literature, go websites, it says, no, that's a myth. Sugars do not feed cancers. But when you really read in to follow the whole article, they finish with all these ways you can reduce the sugars in your diet. It's very clear now that indeed, when you eat sugars or processed foods that turn into sugar, like white flour, like white bread, etc., as the sugar level in your blood rises, the body responds by pancreas puts out this powerful hormone called insulin. And insulin drives sugar from the bloodstream into the cells where it can be burned and lowers the blood sugar. Well, that's great. But high insulin levels also stimulate mTOR, and they stimulate IGF-1 production. And so if you're eating all day, walking around with a bag of Skittles or whatever, and just if you're a grazer instead of eating the specific meals, your insulin level's staying up all the time. You're constantly putting sugar in your bloodstream. Then you're walking around with high IGF-1 and high mTOR levels all the time, or mTOR stimulating levels all the time. And this is a recipe for disaster. And yes, in that way, sugar certainly can stimulate cancer growth. And as I touched on earlier there, if the sugar contributes to the person becoming obese, fat tissue on the abdomen and under the skin produce cancer-promoting substances as well. So in several ways, yes, we should not be eating sugar as a food. Period. That's the real issue. It's
and you're not talking about fruit.
No, I'm not talking about fruits. Okay, I'm talking about refined sugar turned into an Oreo cookie, turned into a chocolate bar, turned into ice cream, turned into cookies, crackers, whatever. That is eating sugar as a food. It was never meant to be eating as a food, and it floods our tissues with sugars that stick to proteins and set off inflammation. Glycosylation reactions are not beneficial for the body. And so this is a distortion, a perversion of the use of sugar. It's a flavoring. They have a teaspoon of maple syrup in your tea. Fine, that's not wrong. But eating, a donut or a vegan cupcake, that's a chunk of sugar that you're eating, and it has adverse effects, no doubt.
And how does whole fruit go in this topic
Right.
that's filled with antioxidants and water and fiber and all the macronutrients? How does that do with this topic?
You answered half the question
Oh, yeah,
right
I know.
there. No, that's beautiful, because when you bite into an apple, yes, it's sweet. Yeah, you're getting some flavor from the fructose and sucrose and other sugars. But what are you also getting? First of all, as you said, it's mostly water, what you're eating when you bite into any whole fruit there. And it's filled with fiber that slows down the absorption. It doesn't leap into your bloodstream as sugar like it does from a cola drink. And it comes with vitamins and minerals that help in the metabolism of whatever sugars you are eating. Along comes thiamine and niacin, etc., to digest these sugars. So all the way around, a fruit diet is beneficial every way you look at it, as long as you brush your teeth afterwards and don't leave the fruit residues along your gum line there. There's nothing wrong with eating fruits, but it's the refined sugars that cause the problem in baked goods and canned desserts.
And I'm really curious, these studies that are showing you that these specific cancers are diet related, what types of studies are they? Are they testing groups of people and eating like a whole foods plant-based diet versus eating a ultra-processed diet with lots of animal foods? Or how are they coming to that conclusion? And are there any specific studies you can mention for people to look up?
Oh, you put your finger on a very important topic. Nutrition science is a difficult one to draw a conclusion from anyway.
Right.
If you are testing a drug, you can give people a pill. One has an active drug, one has a placebo. The patient doesn't know, and it's easy to do a double-blind study on drug.
Right.
But people know what they're eating. You know if you're eating an avocado sandwich or a ham sandwich. You know the difference between the two. And people change what they eat over the course of a week. It's not like they're eating the same meal every day.
It's hard to find people like that.
It's hard to find people like that. And then they say, I'm a vegetarian, but I do eat fish a few times a month when I go out, and people are loose with the definitions. And when I look at the major studies, the EPIC study from Europe, the Seventh-day Adventist study, that look at vegetarians, again, many of them include dairy in their diet there. They have been vegetarian for very long. So when I look at the meat eaters' evidence of disease X is this, and the omnivores that, these are soft numbers. It's really hard to make solid conclusions from them. So I don't put a lot of stock in those studies, but in the general indication, when you pool all the studies, clearly the plant eaters have a lower risk of all these degenerative diseases. And when they look at specific beneficial indicators, the antioxidant levels in the tissues, the amount of free radicals that are produced in these various foods, etc. All these are contributors to disease. The plant-based eaters come out way ahead on all of those. They eat more antioxidants. They generate less free radicals in the food preparation, etc. So all the way around, it's a healthier diet. But in the long-term studies, they should do proper studies. They should follow 5,000 people have been raised as vegans since birth and follow them through their whole lives. And find
that would be really hard to do.
Exactly, right. But that's what would be required before people can say, show me the studies. And let's see who dies of what. And, and do they die at all? So the good research needs to be done yet.
Yes, but that's why it's so helpful to bring this up, because a lot of times people might bring up one particular study. Oh, look, this one particular study showed this, but not considering what does the wide body of evidence say when you pull them all together, for one. And then the other aspect that you brought up, which is really fascinating, is when they study certain things like antioxidants in the diet, and then you can draw to those conclusions of, okay, so people who are eating more antioxidants in the diet, a helpful hypothesis is that this is what it leads to. And so it's really the wider body of evidence and the importance of that instead of just picking on one specific study.
Well said.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, so what about somebody who already has a diet-related cancer and is listening to this? What advice do you have for them?
Right. Well, again, the same general rules to create a body that doesn't support a cancer's origin certainly applies when it comes if you do have a cancer growing in your body there. The last thing you want every meal to promote stabilization and to promote order in cells and reduce oxidation and stress hormones, etc. So that said, if you've got a cancer growing, the last thing you want is a diet with meat in it that jacks up your IGF-1 levels. The last thing you want is a bunch of sugar in your diet that cranks up your insulin levels and that activates mTOR. You don't want lots of fats and animal proteins for the same reason. You don't want foods that make you walk around with high levels of IGF-1 and active mTOR in your genes. And so guess what that comes down to be? Whole food, plant-based. So the oatmeal for breakfast and the soups and the salads and steamed veggies and the minestrone soups and all those things are exactly what one should be eating. Often it's painful now with a nutritional understanding to hear the common advice given by oncologists and family members, because we all have an image in our head, not undeserved, about a patient with an advanced cancer, and they waste away. The medical term is cachexia. They become cachectic, and they turn into skin and bones and eventually expire. And that's such a frightening thing for the patient to experience, but for the patient's families to witness, and for the doctor to witness. So you got to eat, man. Keep those calories going. It doesn't matter what you eat. Have ice cream, have cheeseburgers, whatever you want. Just keep those calories in there. But ironically, in all their good intentions, they're really stoking the fires of the cancer growth, both the very foods that make that cancer grow faster. And so you want to do the mirror image of that. A big salad every day. Don't do high temperature cooking. Don't be eating fried foods and processed foods. Stay out of restaurants as much as you can. The whole plant foods on every level. And it turns out there are foods we're now learning in the plant kingdom that directly suppress mTOR activity in your cells. And guess what they turn out to be? Curcumin in turmeric, resveratrol in grapes and berries, genistein in soy products, dimethyl indoles that are in dark green leafy vegetables. What's in whole plant foods have significant anti-cancer properties to them. And it's not a matter of taking a handful of turmeric tablets and say, I'm cured. And it doesn't work like that. It's the steady stream of nutrients going through your tissues, meal after meal after meal, that bathes your tissues, that bring that healing milieu to your cells. So stay on the whole food plant-based side, and you're doing the best you can, and stay away from the oils as well.
It's really inspiring to hear the benefit of specific whole foods that we're finding in research, because it can be so easy to just go, I don't need to eat that salad today or the steamed broccoli. I'm just going to go for this. It's faster. It's easier. Just grab it and go type thing. I'm out and about. I don't want to take the time to make food. But really, whatever's your priority will become what you're able to make time for. And eating whole foods in its abundance really is what helps you with your longevity and your aging. And I think a lot of times people can get, distracted, discouraged because most people around them aren't eating healthy.
Right.
So, but you've been doing it for so long, and how do you feel about that?
Well, you're certainly right, and the people around you are a huge influence. When we look at people who adopted a vegan diet and then a few years later fell off the wagon and went back to their omnivore diet, I said, what was the major thing? What pulled you off the wagon? It says, at the scene at home there, my husband was antagonistic. We would go out to restaurants. I was the odd man out. People kept asking me about my diet. It was just socially so awkward that it was easier just to eat the fish at the restaurant. And once you open that door, it's easier to slide down the slippery slope there. So. Yeah,
but I do also feel like it's helpful for people to know that it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like for some people who are like, I really like to go to this one restaurant and I want to be able to go out and eat the pad thai and eat the processed stuff every once in a while. I think the importance is understanding is like, don't go do that every day. Don't go do that, even 3 times a week. Like maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, and then every other thing that you have in your home, keep it whole foods. And you'll start to feel the results. You feel so much better when you're doing that.
Doctor, well said advice. That's exactly right. You're out of the
Totally.
park with that one. Good for you.
Well, all right, let's get into heart disease, America's
Right.
biggest killer, which I think is right above cancer, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm correct.
Yeah.
What steps can you take to prevent high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and heart disease?
Uh-huh. Well, surprise, surprise, that our gorilla and our bonobo cousins in the trees don't develop clogged arteries. And they're eating a high carbohydrate diet full of whole plant foods day after day. And their arteries stay clean. And you raise a child as a complete plant-based vegan child who grows up to a plant-based adult. There is no reason that child, that man or woman, should develop plaque in the inside of their arteries if the only things that are running through those arteries are the digestion products from rice and beans and greens and fruits and veggies. There's no reason that those artery walls should become inflamed and develop plaque. There's no reason the artery walls get tight and get high blood pressure, leading to strokes and heart failure. So these are diseases of diet that if you don't plant the seeds and nourish them, they won't sprout. And these are seeds you don't want sprouting when we're talking about artery disease. And so the whole food plant-based diet, is the real key to preventing this disease. And as Dr. Ornish and Dr. Esselstyn have demonstrated, that even if you have plaque in the arteries, if you get on a really clean diet of whole plant foods and soups and salads and steamed veggies and lots of dark leafy greens every few hours, have a little ham, have a portion of broccoli or kale. So those antioxidants are constantly bathing the artery walls, and the antioxidants work their way into the plaques and neutralize free radicals and help the plaques start dissolving and breaking up there. It's not a punishment. You got to eat your greens 4 times a day. You want to eat those greens to keep those antioxidants in your blood. And you maintain that state week after week, month after month. 6, 12, 18 months later, those plaques are melting away and the arteries open up and the angina goes away. So it's a reversible disease, and that should be on highway billboards and TV commercials and TikTok on how to keep your arteries healthy. Mm-hmm. You're as old as your arteries, they say, and it's really true.
And isn't it only through a plant-based diet that it's been proven in research to stop heart disease? There's no other diet that has
I've never seen a paleo
that.
diet reversing heart disease. Never seen a keto diet, even a vegan keto diet, reversing heart disease, where before and after arteriograms show that plaque melting away. But we certainly see that with a whole food plant-based diet. Dr. Esselstyn made that very clear.
And a really common claim right now in the ancestral eating world is that it's not the animal foods, it's the seed oils and the PUFAs. And I think it's really important to just hone in home what you're saying. You're saying whole foods. This isn't seed oils in the diet really anyways, but what are your thoughts on maybe it's PUFAs in general? It could be nuts and seeds, and it's not actually the animal foods that's causing heart disease. And they'll use this graph that say, in the 1970s, and this is where we see the spike in seed oils, and this is where we see the spike in heart disease. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's seed oils and there's seed oils, and a matter of how they're used. The majority of seed oils are cheap omega-6 heavy sunflower oil, safflower oil, corn oil, peanut oil. These are the cheap industrial oils. That's what the French fries are fried in. That's what the potato chips are fried in. When you look on the wrapper of the candy bar or whatever, and you'll see sunflower oil, safflower oil. These are binding agents, whatever. And you're right. The more of that stuff you eat, those are not friendly to your arteries for all sorts of the sugars that are involved. Fats are oxidized. These are not healthy fats, and their use in the American diet has certainly increased in the last 20, 30 years. And they probably played a role in part of the artery assault, as did the cooked burgers and the deep fried fish and everything else that we're eating and of that standard American dietary style. They play a role, but to single them, that was the real cause. Ignore all the buffalo wings and the fried chicken and the pepperoni pizzas that we've been eating. It's the seed oils. It's kind of a silly argument. They play a role, but it's As Dr. Colin Campbell wrote this very powerful book called Whole, W-H-O-L-E,
I love
Whole.
that book.
And he was saying don't start focusing on the seed oils versus the egg yolks versus it's the whole food stream moving through your tissues. What's in your bloodstream after every meal that stays there hour after hour and bathes your tissue? What's the whole effect of that meal having? That's where the damage gets done, or that's where the healing happens. If you're just flooding soups and salads and steamed veggies through your bloodstream, that's you bring a healing array of molecules to your bloodstream as opposed to the buffalo wings and pepperoni pizzas there. And so for them to focus, it's the seed oils. No, it's what's happened to our Western diet. It's full of meat and dairy and oil and sugar.
That book is one of my favorite books. Whole, Rethinking the Science of Nutrition, nutritional biochemist, Colin Campbell. Love him. I would love to get him on the podcast. I know he's definitely, is he 90 now?
Yeah, he's 89 now. We just had a birthday.
That's amazing.
Right.
Amazing.
Real inspiring.
Right. But those foods that you did mention, the pizza, the buffalo wings, and French fries, those all do have seed oil components. So
they do.
So what about specifically just like grass-fed meat?
Well, grass-fed beef, still it's beef. It's animal muscle, and it's full of cholesterol. It's full of saturated fats. You're going to broil it. You're going to create carcinogens. You're going to set off a big bolt of IGF-1 produced by your own liver. It's meat. And it's damaging. And gorillas don't develop clogged arteries. They're not eating cheeseburgers, even grass-fed cheeseburgers. It's kind of a silly argument. Now, grass-fed beef's any better? Well, the feedlot beef are eating grains that are sprayed with pesticides and herbicides. There's probably less of that in the grass. But for the little bit less pesticides, it's still animal muscle, full of carcinogens, saturated fat, and it sets off IGF-1. And it's just we're not carnivorous creatures. We're not the flesh-eating ape. That's not who we are.
Yeah, that's like such an important factor because people will say, well, it's not actually the fact that it's meat. It's because it's factory farmed, so it's the source. Right. When really you still have the same components of meat in the grass-fed or the free-range chicken and all that stuff.
Of course.
Yeah. And something that Simon Hill, do you know who he is? Nutritionist. He has a book called The Proof is in the Plants.
Right.
Love him. I love how he explains the nutrition science in response to these people talking about the seed oils because he's saying, well, in the studies you have to say compared to what? So if you're comparing meat to maybe margarine, seed oils, different things like that, then you're going to get a different result when you're doing meat compared to whole foods, legumes, this type of thing. So you might want to say, it's just the seed oils, it's just the PUFAs or whatever. But really, there's so many things that can contribute to heart disease.
Well said. Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's see. What's the next thing that we need to talk about? The percentage of the American diet is comprised of ultra-processed foods and animal foods. Do you know what the percentages is and the average are for people?
Oh, it's over 80% is either processed foods or animal foods of some sort. The amount of fresh fruits and vegetables, like 8%.
Yeah. It's like the side component for people. They think,
exactly.
A little side of fruit or a little side of broccoli.
I had lettuce on my burger under the bun there.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of swapping that out for the nutritious whole foods, the legumes and the tofu and even the tempeh and the rice and quinoa and avocados and things like that. Tahini, those hemp seeds, all that type of stuff. So this is another important question. Going back to the cancer, same kind of question I had for cancer. Why is there so much conflicting public opinion on animal products and meat causing heart disease?
Well, we've seen this now play out so often. A study will come out showing that meat or sugar or oil or whatever dairy is, has this adverse effect. And you almost set your stopwatch before the first article appears from the dairy producers or the meat association. Here's what's wrong with this study, why it's invalid, and there's 16 points to refute it. Because it's their livelihood. They guard that first chakra survival instinct. Man, that reptilian brain lashes out and wants to destroy any opposition. And because billions of dollars are on the line here, and so no, you're not going to get valid feedback when folks who are making their monies from the other types of food are involved in the study. Someone said, Upton Sinclair said, it's difficult to convince a man to see something when his paycheck depends on him not seeing it. And that's largely what we're seeing with the studies, because you can always find one or two outlier studies showing that steak is good for you and smoking cigarettes is good for you. You can always find a couple of these studies. But when you look at the overwhelming evidence of medical studies, clearly whole food plant-based diets are what we should be eating.
Yeah, and it's so important for people to realize that there's no big broccoli in the way that there is big animal agriculture and how much they influence studies.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that's a lot in the book Whole. He talks about the influence in nutrition science. That's such a fascinating part of the book. And he was on the board of certain decisions for what studies would make it into medical journals and how much bias he saw.
Stunning.
I mean, that should be talked about more. That could be an entire episode of itself.
He that pays the piper calls the tune, you know, and these guys are paying the piper, so the tune comes out they want to hear.
So it sounds like people, because I'm curious how much of it is, do people just not know or they just don't care, you know? Because like you said, people are being receptive to it. You said when physicians are helping them and reminding them, look, whole foods, plant-based diet, are you eating more plant foods, more whole foods, that people are being receptive, or their patients are being receptive to it. And so I wonder if a lot of it is just like misinformation that is constantly being put out in the media because of the bias.
Short answer, yes. Both people don't know and often people don't care. People don't know, and as we just briefly talked about, it's in the interest of the meat industry, the dairy industry, to, when any studies come out, to produce as much confusion in the people's minds as possible and show a bunch of opposing studies or this or that. So they take a page right out of the book of the tobacco folks, whose hired companies whose motto was doubt is our product. Okay, we want to put doubt in the patient's mind, doubt in the consumer's mind. So they get to the point, well, it doesn't matter. No, they don't know it. Nobody knows what they're talking about. It doesn't matter what I eat. I might as well eat this. They don't know anything. And the meat and the dairy guys said, mission accomplished. You know, that's just what we wanted to create.
Right.
And so when they say they don't know, because they're being fed such misinformation of this, absolutely. And a lot of people say, yeah, I know. I mean, my buffalo wings. Yeah, I know a chicken got its head chopped off. I know it's tough luck for the chicken. I like my buffalo wings here. And a lot of folks just don't care because they've never seen a chicken. They've never touched an animal. They've never, meat comes wrapped up in cellophane from the supermarket. And we've so lost our connection with nature. We're suffering from NDD, nature deficit disorder. That we have no compassion for these animals because they're never in our lives anymore. And the meat industry, each individual, I'm not, I want to say they're evil people. They're all caught in this financial straitjacket where they got to keep putting out this product. They don't have anything else that they can make a living from. But the meat industry makes sure we have no contact with the animals. These are the hundreds of millions of chickens and cows and pigs are in these anonymous aluminum sheds way up on the hillsides there. You see them when you're driving through the country. Yeah, what's up there? You never even see them. But these are hundreds of millions of living animals in these dreadful sheds here. But they don't want you to see that. Just eat your buffalo wing. Don't worry about what's in those sheds. And so the public, when they say they don't care, because they just had no exposure to it. And I'm really rooting on the folks who bring the animals to life, who work in the animal welfare movement, because that's an important connection to make.
Something for people to really ponder is why it's illegal to film in slaughterhouses. Why is that? In factory farms, why can't we show exactly what's happening if it's really not bad? If it's not that bad, if it's not something we don't want to see. It's because we don't want to see it. It would totally put us off from eating that way. And even if it's a grass-fed, free-range, organic, whatever, versus a factory farmed animal, they all end up at the same slaughterhouse and they die in the same way. And for anyone interested, check out Dominion. Have you seen Dominion, that documentary? It's a great documentary in Australia, actually, of vegan activists who snuck into factory farms and slaughterhouses, actually, largely. So they're from any kind of, life lived from the animal. And totally from free-range grass-fed animals as well, because they end up in the same slaughterhouse and they snuck in recorded that footage, and it is very similar practices in Australia as it is to the US. So if you're at all curious of like, how bad is it? Would I actually want to eat this way if I knew exactly what happened? Watch that documentary. It's really good, Dominion. And sometimes I think, what would it be like if, the supermarkets, instead of having the picture of the happy cow or the happy chicken, on the cartons, if they just had video footage above at the supermarket showing, okay, this is how the animal died. This is how we got that milk. This is how we impregnated the cow. How many people would decide not to buy it instead?
Indeed, Paul McCartney said in the 90s, if slaughterhouses had glass walls, we'd all be vegetarians.
Yes.
And he's absolutely right.
So true. It's really, really fascinating. And it's easy to romanticize it with certain terms like grass-fed and stuff. It makes you feel better. Like, oh, the cow lived a happy life. But why, if we wouldn't eat a dog, why would we eat a cow? That is the most obvious thing to me in our biology. Going back to our biology when you're talking about the chimps and the bonobos.
Indeed. Absolutely.
Yeah. So one of the last questions I want to ask you is, what other factors are related to health then that we can round out this conversation other than just the food that we eat? And since you work with people and patients and helping them get better, are there any other lifestyle factors that you help them to shift into their diet to help their wellness?
Oh, such a beautiful question to lead to this point. In that we're natural creatures. We belong here on this earth, despite what we're doing to the earth and each other and the other animals. We have a rightful place to live if we do it gently and reverently and responsibly. And that life includes moving. We are animals. We got to move. And so a daily walk outside, a daily exercise in whatever form it works for you is absolutely important. We need the basics like every other animal do. We need enough sleep. We all get pretty raggedy. We don't get it. And you can't cheat on that. Your body, if it needs 7 hours, give it those 7 hours because it ages you to cheat on your sleep there. We need fresh water, the best drink going in the world. And low-grade dehydration is really a subtle problem that's widespread. And our tissue reactions happen in a watery medium, and we need to give ourselves enough water. And so that's important. Sunshine, we belong out in the sunshine. Vitamin D is made when that sunshine falls on our skin. We'll become so afraid of the sun these days. But we need to be out in the sunshine at least 20 minutes, half hour every day, absolutely. And very importantly, we are social creatures. We are tribal creatures. We need each other on so many levels, emotionally and economically and spiritually. And so being well connected in your group is important. And a feeling that you're productive, that you're helping things in some way by just raising your kids or cleaning up the park or teaching a kid to read or go shopping for someone who can't shop for themselves. Do something every day to make this a better world, to show more love, basically. We're here to love. We're here to learn and to love and to laugh. And so if you've got those things going, then a whole food plant-based diet, that's the fuel that makes it all go. That brings it up to fruition there. You turn into a healthy person at that point.
Yep.
So basics go a long way.
Yep. It starts with what you eat 3 times a day.
3
4
times
times maybe even sometimes.
It's the food. I've got another T-shirt that says, eat plants and get on with it. Because ultimately it comes down to that very issue, is whether talking about unclogging your arteries or avoiding cancer, eat plants and get on with it. It all still comes down to a whole food plant-based diet.
Love it. Well, this is perfect. Thank you so much for this conversation. I'm inspired. I already eat a whole foods plant-based diet, but I definitely dabble in my fun foods and processed foods here and there, and this is definitely inspiring to amp up the broccoli, amp up the berries, keep it up with my greens. I eat so many greens and just all that.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you so much.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much. Excellent interview. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye-bye.